I've got a lot that I want to share with you guys. I am so excited to be here. I thought, though, some of you may not have seen what just happened about 10 days ago. I want to start with a video of where we are now. Then I'm going to tell you how we got here. And then I'm going to tell you why I'm optimistic that we can end up winning this battle of wokeness in sports. But let's start with where we are right now. April 6th, I turned 45 years old. I have got a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 9-year-old. I've been married almost 20 years. So I may look 55 or 60, but I promise I'm only 45. I've packed a lot of energy and effort into those 45 years. And on my birthday, 45th birthday, we took the boys. I grew up a big wrestling fan. Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, Andre the Giant. Some of you or your kids may well have been fans too. We went to WrestleMania in Philadelphia. My boys were super excited to go watch The Rock and Roman Reigns and all of those current wrestling stars. Went with my wife, we flew up there. And as we were getting ready to leave that day, I was told, hey, the site that I now run, I sold it to Fox in 2021. I'm still running it. I do the Clay and Buck show every day. I do about 4 hours of live media every day, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But that morning, as the South Carolina and Iowa women's teams were preparing to play the national championship game in women's college basketball, they had a press conference featuring Dawn Staley, the women's coach at the University of South Carolina, and the Iowa women's coach, Lisa Bluter. Dawn Staley was up first. We have about 75-ish employees now at Outkick. A lot of different talented people writing every day, serving what I say is the 80 or 90% of sports fans who have not lost their mind and are not woke imbeciles who believe that men can decide to become women. We asked Dawn Staley a question that I think goes to the very essence of women's sports. What does she think about the idea of a man being able to become a woman and compete in women's athletics? Would she or would she not support it? She had never been asked this question. Almost no women's college coach has been asked this question because so many people in sports media, and I'll talk about this, are far left-wing themselves. They use sports as an opportunity to advocate their political views and zealously combat anyone who would try to say either sports should exist for sports' sake, because it's the ultimate meritocracy, or maybe let's just have something that everyone can enjoy without having to make it left-wing politics by some other name. This is what happened. This clip has been watched probably now, just this clip alone that we're about to play you on Twitter is over 30 million views. Probably over 100 million people have watched this. It's probably the most watched question and answer that has occurred in a sports context so far this year. I want to play it for you and let you watch it. This is where we are right now. This happened 10 days ago.
Dan Zakrzewski, Outkick coach. You just talked about, what a massive weekend this is, obviously, for women's basketball, women's sports in general. One of the major issues facing women's sports right now is the discussion topic about the inclusion of transgender athletes, biological males, in women's sports. I was wondering if you would tell me your position on that issue.
Damn, you got deep on me, didn't you? I'm under the opinion of if you're a woman, you should play. If you consider yourself a woman and you want to play sports or vice versa, you should be able to play. That's my opinion. You want me to go deeper?
Do you think transgender women should be able to participate
that's your question
in
you want
basketball?
Me to ask. I mean, you want to ask, so I'll give you that. Yes. So now the barnstorm of people are going to flood my timeline and be a distraction to me on one of the biggest days of our game. And I'm okay with that. I really am.
Now, that was one of our Outkick employees, writers, Dan Zakrzewski, who asked that question. You can probably imagine he was absolutely castigated for having the gall, the audacity to ask a question about whether men who, in my opinion, are pretending to be women should be able to compete in women's athletics. 10 days ago, Dawn Staley, who is probably the foremost women's coach in all of America right now, said, if you are a man who identifies as a woman, she thinks you should be able to play women's athletics. Now, we also at Outkick employ a woman named Riley Gaines. Some of you will know her. Riley Gaines, for those of you who do not know her story, was a women's swimmer at the University of Kentucky at the NCAA championships, SEC champion swimmer, who had to swim against a man named Leah Thomas, who for 3 years swam on the University of Pennsylvania men's team, and then decided he was a woman and swam for the University of Pennsylvania women's team and became a women's champion. ESPN, in their Women's Sports Month, honored him as one of the greatest women's athletes of the year. How did we get here? I started Outkick, and I started in the world of sports as an escape from the serious things in life. Dr. Arnn was talking about how many young kids there are who graduate from college and then go on to grad school. And they now have, some of you may have experienced this with your kids or grandkids, used to be a midlife crisis. Have you heard now there's a quarter life crisis? You're 25 years old or so, you panic because you've gone through all this schooling and you have all this theoretical achievement, and then you look around and you say, is this it? Because you may not have a foundation in place. And I say, when I was 25 years old, I was practicing law, and I had what didn't exist yet, but I had a moment of panic where I looked around and I remember, if you've ever been a litigator, and I'm sure there are some of you who are unfortunate enough to be lawyers in this community right now, in this room, litigation takes a long time. There are cases that take years. And I remember thinking, is this going to be the rest of my life? Am I going to be sitting here? I remember one of my cases was arguing whether it was excusable neglect that February 29th happened and caused somebody to miss a leap year, caused somebody to miss a filing deadline. And if you go to law school, you study all the major issues of the day, and Brown versus the Board of Education, and Marbury versus Madison, and all these iconic cases, and you debate with all your classmates. What should the role of the law be? What should judges do? Who are the best Supreme Court justices? Which are the best and worst decided cases in the history of jurisprudence? And then you graduate from law school and you find yourself sitting in front of a computer one day arguing about whether February 29th being missed for a filing deadline is excusable neglect or not, and you do that for months at a time. And so you don't really get fired up. And some of you may have been paying attention to the news cycle recently. I weighed in with my opinion on the Trump trial that's going on in New York City right now and what kind of jurors I thought should be seated. And a bunch of different people, Eric Swalwell, Joy Reid, all weighed in and said that my opinion was a felony and that I should be, I'm not kidding, maybe I need to look over my shoulder, I might be about to be arrested, but they said, that's a felony, you need to be arrested for giving your opinion on the jury that's going to be seated here on this case. And they said, and if you're not arrested, you definitely should be disbarred. And I was like, do you really think I want to keep this law degree? My whole career is about trying to make sure that I never have to practice law again. So I think there's a lot of lawyers out there that are like, they'll give me an excuse to finally do what I'd really like to do. But when you analyze this, I came into the world of sports as a lawyer with the idea that sports was an escape from the serious things in life. A toy chest is the way it's described of life. That sports, if you read the newspaper, and I still like to read old school newspapers, I'm sure some of you do, is one of the only sections, if not the only section, that regularly celebrates achievement, not failure. That we read sports because it is the ultimate meritocracy. The best man or woman wins, not the best man pretending to be a woman. And what they have done, what I saw, and look, I got into it as just a diehard Southeastern Conference football fan. I love college football. It's one of my passions. I love sports in general. I got into it because I wanted to escape the serious things in life. And the thing that I loved about sports, my first book I wrote was Dixieland Delight, about going around to all 12 SEC football stadiums as a fan. What I loved about it was it brought everybody together. White, black, Asian, Hispanic, male, female. If you have ever been in a crowd, I know the Mariners had a game today, middle part of the day. Your team wins a game. As you're high-fiving everybody around you in that stadium or that arena, you don't think about their race. You don't think about their gender. You don't think about their political beliefs. That is a uniquely connective moment. And the next day after a game, 12th man's a big deal here in Seattle. If you go into, let's say you work in a hospital, you could have a janitor and a neurosurgeon sitting at a table together in that cafeteria, and they could have the exact same, watch the exact same game and have a totally different opinion on the coach or the quarterback or the play calling. And you know what? That janitor and that neurosurgeon would be on equal playing fields when it came to their opinion. When we would take calls, I did sports talk radio for a long time. I loved it. Everybody could call in and say what they thought. And you know what nobody ever said? I noticed it. Nobody ever called into my sports talk radio show back when I started and ever began their opinion by saying, as a gay transgender woman, I believe. Think about it. I've made this analogy for a while. We have created identity politics and tried to transmit it to the world of sports. Think about how often you hear somebody say now their identity as a prelude to the opinion they're about to share. Why in the world should I care what you look like? I care about the quality of your opinion. And I always thought that was so interesting. We would take calls from all over the country eventually when I did a national sports talk radio show. And slowly people started to interject what their race or their gender was before they would give an opinion. How did that happen? How did the left manage to take over sports to such an extent where when you guys watch that video, Dawn Staley is on record. You know what she says? The reason why her team is so good? They practice against men on campus. Intramural boys are much better than her national champion women's team. They don't practice against women. It wouldn't make them better. They practice against pretty good college boys. She specifically thanked them for being able to win a championship. She knows that men are bigger, stronger, and faster than women. So why is she willing to say on the biggest stage of her sport, at the absolute apex of her career achievement, that a man should be able to play on a women's basketball team? Because she has allowed the truth to not be her paramount virtue. She has allowed the woke virus, the identity politics, to overtake the meritocracy of sports. How do we get this back? And how did we get here? It's something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. And so I want to just kind of take you to another place. So I just told you 10 days ago, Dawn Staley, you saw that answer. Anybody know what the most watched basketball game of all time in the history of the United States is? Game 6, 1998, the Chicago Bulls against the Utah Jazz, the NBA Finals. I jotted this down because I wanted to make sure I got it right. By the way, there were 70 or 80 million fewer people in America in 1998 than there are today. So this number is even bigger in the context of what our population is today. But in 1998, 35.89 million viewers tuned in to watch Game 6. There might be some Utah Jazz fans out here. Michael Jordan pushed off against Brian Russell, stepped back, hit a jumper to win his 6th championship in 8 years. Michael Jordan's most famous quote, and this is the title of my 3rd book, in the context of politics, was, "Republicans buy sneakers too." And that's a real quote. They asked Jordan why he wasn't more outspoken on politics, and he said, "Republicans buy sneakers too."